The art of disappearing. Rachel Bennett had perfected the art of being forgettable. Every morning, she stood before her bathroom mirror and deliberately erased herself. The thick framed glasses went on first, followed by foundation 2 shades too pale for her warm skin tone. She pulled her chestnut hair into a severe bun so tight it gave her headaches. The oversized gray cardigan came next, drowning her figure in shapeless fabric. By the time she finished, the woman staring back at her looked tired, plain, and utterly unremarkable. That was exactly the point at 28 years old. Rachel had spent the last 5 years making herself invisible. It started after the incident at her previous job, where her former boss had made her beauty a daily topic of conversation. The compliments had turned into comments. The comments had turned into touches. The touches had turned into a nightmare that ended with her quitting, filing a report that went nowhere. And losing her confidence entirely, she learned a hard truth that year. Beauty was not a gift. It was a target, so she hid it. She buried it under layers of drab clothing and deliberate plainness. And it worked. At Summit Creative Agency, nobody looked at her twice. She was just Rachel from the design department, quiet and competent. The woman who never caused problems and never drew attention. A new storm arrives the morning of September 15th, started like any other. Rachel arrived at the office at 7:30, a full hour before anyone else. She liked the silence of the empty building, the way her footsteps echoed in the hallways. She settled at her desk in the corner of the open plan office, turned on her computer, and lost herself in the current project. A rebranding campaign for a luxury hotel chain. She was so focused on adjusting the color palette that she didn't hear the elevator doors open. She didn't notice the small crowd gathering near the reception area. She didn't realize anything had changed until her coworker, Jennifer, rushed over to her desk, eyes wide with excitement. "Rachel, did you hear? Daniel Cross is here. Like actually here in the building right now." Rachel glanced up briefly, pushing her glasses up her nose. Jennifer gasped dramatically. "Who?" "Only the Daniel Cross, the CEO. The man who turned his family's failing publishing house to a media empire worth $3 billion. He's been traveling for 2 years, expanding the international branches. Nobody's seen him in the Chicago office since before you started working here." "Oh," Rachel said, turning back to her screen. "That's nice." Jennifer shook her head in disbelief. "Nice, Rachel. The man is gorgeous. And single, and apparently he's going to be working here for the next 6 months while he restructures the company. This is huge." Rachel offered a polite smile and returned to her work. She had no interest in gorgeous CEOs or office gossip. She wanted to finish her designs, collect her paycheck, and go home to her quiet apartment where nobody expected anything from her. The gaze. Wow, that changed everything. Daniel Cross was used to reactions. When he walked into a room, people straightened their spines, fixed their hair, turned on their brightest smiles. He had learned to read those reactions, to see through the performance everyone put on for the boss. That's why. Rachel Bennett caught his attention immediately. He was making his rounds through the creative department, shaking hands and making small talk, when he noticed her in the corner. While everyone else had turned to face him, she remained hunched over her computer, fingers flying across her keyboard, completely absorbed in whatever was on her screen. Daniel found himself walking toward her desk. As he got closer, he could see the design on her monitor, a stunning visual composition that somehow captured both elegance and warmth. "It was exceptional work. It's beautiful," he said. Rachel jumped, startled. Her hand knocked over her coffee mug, sending brown liquid spreading across her desk. She scrambled to grab tissues, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Cross. I didn't hear you. I was just working on the Grandview Hotels project. Let me clean this up." "I'm sorry." "I'm really sorry." Daniel grabbed some tissues from a nearby desk and helped her mop up the spill. "Please, don't apologize. I'm the one who startled you. And call me Daniel." As they worked together to clean the mess, Daniel found himself studying her. She kept her eyes down, her movements quick and nervous. Most people tried to hold his gaze to make an impression. She seemed desperate to avoid eye contact entirely. "What's your name?" he asked gently.
Rachel.
"Rachel Bennett. I'm a graphic designer. I've been here for 3 years. 3 years. Daniel was surprised. He made it a point to know his employees, at least by name. I should have met you before now. I keep to myself mostly, Rachel said quietly, still not meeting his eyes. I just focus on my work. Daniel nodded slowly. There was something about her voice, soft but steady, that intrigued him. And despite her obvious discomfort, she hadn't stumbled over her words or tried to flatter him. She was genuine in a way that felt rare. Well, Rachel Bennett, I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work. That hotel design is exactly the kind of fresh thinking this company needs. For just a moment, Rachel looked up at him. Behind those thick glasses, her eyes were a striking shade of amber, warm and intelligent. Then she quickly looked away again, mumbling a quiet thank you. As Daniel continued his rounds, he found his thoughts returning to the woman in the corner. There was a mystery there, something hidden beneath the plain exterior. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. But he felt certain of one thing. Rachel Bennett was not what she appeared to be. The walls she built that evening. Rachel sat in her apartment, her heart still racing from the encounter. She had felt Daniel cross his eyes on her, studying her, seeing past the carefully constructed disguise. It terrified her. She thought about the way he had helped clean up the coffee without hesitation, without making her feel stupid or clumsy. She thought about his voice, warm and genuinely interested when he complimented her work. She thought about how for just a second she had wanted to look at him properly, to see if his reputation for being handsome is accurate. Then she remembered why she couldn't allow herself to think that way. Rachel walked to her bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of her dresser. Underneath layers of old clothes, she found the photograph. It showed a different version of herself from 5 years ago. Hair flowing loose around her shoulders, minimal makeup highlighting her natural features, wearing a fitted dress that showed her figure. She was smiling, confident, beautiful. That woman had been hurt. That woman had learned that beauty invited danger. Rachel put the photograph away and looked at herself in the mirror. The plain woman staring back at her was safe, protected, invisible. She needed to stay that way, even if a small, buried part of her wondered what it might be like to be seen again. To be truly seen, not as an object, but as a person, by someone like Daniel Cross. Rachel shook her head, dismissing the thought. That was a dangerous path, one she had promised herself she would never walk again. Tomorrow, she would return to work. She would keep her head down, finish her projects, and avoid the new CEO at all costs. It was the only way to stay safe. What Rachel didn't know was that Daniel Cross had already decided she was worth knowing. And when Daniel made up his mind about something, he rarely gave up. The collision course had been set. The unwanted attention 3 weeks had passed since Daniel Cross arrived at Summit Creative Agency, and Rachel had done everything possible to avoid him. She arrived earlier, left later, took her lunch at odd hours, volunteered for projects that kept her away from the main office. Her strategy had worked perfectly until the morning Jennifer burst into the break room with unwelcome news. Rachel, you're not going to believe this. Daniel personally requested you for the Meridian Corporation pitch. You know, the biggest potential client we've had in 5 years? He specifically asked for you by name. Rachel's coffee suddenly tasted bitter. There must be some mistake. I'm sure he meant someone else. Jennifer laughed. Nope. I was there when he told Margaret. He said, I want Rachel Bennett on this project. Her design work is exactly what Meridian is looking for. Girl, do you know how lucky you are? People would kill for this kind of attention from him. Lucky was not the word Rachel would have chosen. Trapped felt more accurate 2 hours later. She found herself sitting in the conference room with Daniel and 3 other team members. While the marketing director droned on about target demographics, Rachel kept her eyes fixed on her notepad, sketching ideas and avoiding Daniel's gaze. Rachel, what are your initial thoughts? His voice cut through her concentration. Everyone turned to look at her. She felt her pulse quicken, that familiar anxiety rising in her chest. I think, she began carefully, her voice steady despite her nerves, that Meridian wants to appeal to a younger market without alienating their established base. The design should feel fresh, but trustworthy. Bold colors, but with classic typography. Modern, but timeless. The room fell silent. Rachel risked a glance up and found Daniel watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Respect, maybe? Or curiosity? That's exactly right, he said quietly. Can you have some concepts ready by Friday? Rachel nodded, already planning how she could complete the work from home, minimizing her office presence. But Daniel had other plans. The persistent CEO over the following days. Daniel found reasons to stop by Rachel's desk. He would ask about her progress, offer feedback, or simply chat about the project. Each visit lasted only a few minutes, but they left Rachel feeling exposed and unsettled. On Wednesday afternoon, he appeared with 2 cups of coffee. I noticed you drink it black, he said, setting 1 cup on her desk. No sugar, no cream. Rachel stared at the coffee as if it might explode. You didn't have to do that, Mr. Cross. Daniel, he corrected gently. And I wanted to. You've been working incredibly hard on this pitch. Pulled up a chair and sat down beside her, studying the designs on her screen. Rachel tensed, hyper-aware of his proximity. He smelled like cedar and something citrus, expensive and subtle. These are remarkable, Daniel said, pointing to a logo variation. You have a gift for understanding what a brand needs before they even know it themselves. Thank you, Rachel murmured, wondering when he would leave so she could breathe properly again. But Daniel didn't leave. Instead, he asked, How long have you been designing? Since college? About 7 years now. What made you choose this field? Rachel hesitated. The question felt personal, like he was trying to dig beneath the surface she worked so hard to maintain. I like that design is about communication. You can say important things without words. You can make people feel something just through color and shape. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. So you prefer letting your work speak for you? The observation was too accurate. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. I suppose so. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Rachel finally looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since that initial meeting. His eyes were a deep blue, intelligent and kind. There was no judgment in his expression, only genuine interest. It would have been so easy to tell him, to explain about her past, about why she hid, about the fear that lived in her chest every time someone paid too much attention. But opening up meant becoming vulnerable, and vulnerability meant danger. I just preferred to keep things professional, she said instead, turning back to her screen. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, picking up his coffee. Fair enough. But Rachel, I hope you know that you can talk to me. Not just about work. About anything. After he left, Rachel sat frozen at her desk, her heart pounding. This was exactly what she had feared. He was getting too close, showing too much interest. She needed to rebuild her walls, reinforce her defenses. But a small, traitorous part of her had enjoyed their conversation. Had wanted it to continue. The cracks began to show. Friday arrived with the Meridian pitch. Rachel had prepared 5 different design concepts, each one more polished than the last. She stood at the front of the conference room, presenting to Daniel, the executive team, and the Meridian representatives via video call. As she explained her vision for each concept, something shifted. Rachel forgot to be nervous. She forgot to hide. She was in her element, speaking with passion about color theory, brand psychology, and visual storytelling. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. The Meridian CEO, a stern woman named Patricia Blackwell, smiled for the first time during the meeting. Miss Bennett, your work is exceptional. You understand our vision better than we do. We would like to move forward with Concept 3, and we want you to lead the entire creative development. Rachel felt a surge of pride she hadn't experienced in years. For a moment, she forgot to be invisible. She smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that transformed her face. Daniel saw it. He watched the way her eyes lit up, the way her whole demeanor changed when she felt confident and safe. He saw a glimpse of the woman hiding beneath the disguise, and it took his breath away. After the meeting, as people filed out congratulating Rachel, Daniel approached her. That was incredible. You should be very proud. Thank you, Rachel said, still riding the high of her success. I love this project. It feels meaningful. It came alive up there, Daniel observed. I wish you felt comfortable doing that more often. The comment brought Rachel crashing back to reality. She straightened her cardigan, adjusted her glasses. I should get back to work. There's a lot to do now, Rachel. Wait. Daniel's hand brushed her arm, and she flinched instinctively. He immediately pulled back, concern flooding his features. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you. It's fine, Rachel said quickly, but her voice shook slightly. I just don't like being touched. Daniel studied her carefully, and Rachel could see the wheels turning in his mind. He was putting pieces together, understanding dawning in his eyes. Someone hurt you, he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Rachel felt panic rising. This was too much, too fast. He was seeing too much. I really need to go. She grabbed her materials and fled the conference room, leaving Daniel standing alone, his heart heavy with understanding, the breaking point that weekend. Rachel couldn't stop thinking about the way Daniel had looked at her. Not with pity, but with a tenderness that terrified her more than any unwanted advance ever had. She tried to focus on the Meridian project, sketching designs at her kitchen table, but her mind kept drifting to Daniel's voice, his kindness, the way he had immediately respected her boundaries when she flinched. On Monday morning, Rachel made a decision. She needed to create more distance. She would request a transfer to a different department, or maybe start looking for a new job entirely. Being around Daniel was becoming dangerous, not because he threatened her, but because he made her want things she had given up on. She walked into the office with renewed determination to protect herself. But when she reached her desk, she found a note waiting for her. The handwriting was elegant and masculine. Rachel, I crossed a line on Friday and I want to apologize properly. Would you have lunch with me today? Just as colleagues, I promise. No pressure. Daniel. Rachel held the note in trembling hands. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse to maintain her walls, to stay safe in her isolation. But another voice, quieter but persistent, whispered a different message. What if this time is different? What if he really does see you, not just your appearance? What if you're not giving him a chance because you're afraid of being hurt, but in doing so, you're hurting yourself? Rachel sat down at her desk and pulled out a piece of paper. She wrote 3 words. Okay, just lunch. She left the note on Daniel's desk before she could change her mind. An unexpected connection, they met at a small cafe, 3 blocks from the office. Daniel had chosen it deliberately, Rachel realized. It was quiet, intimate, without being romantic. The kind of place where 2 people could have a real conversation. Thank you for agreeing to this, Daniel said as they settled into a corner booth. I know I made you uncomfortable, and I'm truly sorry. Rachel wrapped her hands around her water glass. You didn't know? It's not your fault. Still, I should have been more aware. You always seem so guarded, and I should have respected that without pushing. The waiter came and they ordered. After he left, an awkward silence stretched between them. Rachel fidgeted with her napkin while Daniel seemed to be carefully choosing his words. Finally, he spoke. Can I tell you something? You don't have to respond or share anything in return. I just want you to understand where I'm coming from. Rachel nodded cautiously. When I took over my family's company 8 years ago, I was 26 and completely unprepared. My father had just died, and the board wanted to sell everything. I fought to keep the business, and I won, but it changed me. Suddenly, everyone wanted something from me. Money, connections, access. I couldn't tell who was genuine anymore. He paused, taking a sip of water. I started seeing people as transactions. Relationships became strategies. It was lonely, but it felt necessary. Then I spent 2 years traveling, rebuilding our international offices. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what it felt like to connect with someone real. Daniel looked directly at Rachel. Then I met you. You didn't want anything from me. You didn't perform or pretend. You were just genuinely yourself, focused on your work, unimpressed by my title or my money. It was the most refreshing thing I'd experienced in years. Rachel felt her carefully constructed walls trembling. I'm not as genuine as you think. I'm hiding too. I know. Daniel said gently. But you're hiding to protect yourself, not to manipulate others. There's a difference. The food arrived and they began to eat. Gradually, the tension eased. They talked about safe topics at first: favorite books, childhood memories, travel dreams. Rachel found herself laughing at Daniel's story about getting lost in Tokyo and ending up at a sumo wrestling match by accident. I had no idea what was happening, he said with a grin, but everyone was so excited that I just cheered along with them. Afterward, one of the wrestlers invited me backstage. Nicest people I've ever met. Rachel smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. That sounds amazing. I've always wanted to travel, but I've never been brave enough. Brave enough? I guess I'm afraid of being alone in unfamiliar places, of being vulnerable. Daniel's expression softened. You're braver than you think, Rachel. Coming to work every day, creating beautiful things, existing in a world that hasn't always been kind to you. That takes tremendous courage. Rachel felt tears prickling behind her eyes. No one had ever described her survival as courage before. What happened? Daniel asked quietly. You don't have to tell me, but I want you to know that I see you struggling with something heavy, and I wish I could help carry it. For a long moment, Rachel considered staying silent, but something about Daniel's openness, his own vulnerability, made her want to trust him. 5 years ago, I worked at a design firm in New York, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. The story she carried. Rachel took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she continued. My boss was a man named Richard Holloway, successful, charming, married with 2 kids. At first, he was just complimentary about my work. Then the compliments shifted to my appearance, how I dressed, how I wore my hair, how I looked in certain outfits. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, giving her space to speak. I tried to ignore it, to be professional, but it escalated. He started calling me into his office for unnecessary meetings. He would stand too close, touch my shoulder, my back. Other people noticed, but no one said anything. One night I was working late on a deadline and he cornered me in the break room. Rachel's voice cracked. She paused, taking a sip of water. Daniel reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers, but not touching, offering support without invading her space. He tried to kiss me. I pushed him away, and he got angry. He said I had been leading him on, dressing a certain way, asking for his attention. I quit the next day and filed a complaint with HR. They said it was my word against his. And since there were no witnesses to the actual incident, they couldn't do anything. He kept his job. His reputation stayed intact. And I left with nothing but trauma and a lesson. What lesson? Daniel asked softly. That being beautiful is dangerous. That my appearance invited the wrong kind of attention. So I decided to disappear. I moved to Chicago, changed how I looked, and promised myself I would never stand out again. Rachel finally met Daniel's eyes. So you see, I'm not the genuine person you think I am. I'm a coward hiding behind ugly clothes and thick glasses, too afraid to be myself. Daniel shook his head firmly. You're not a coward. You're a survivor. What happened to you was wrong, and the fact that system failed you is unforgivable. But Rachel, you can't let one terrible man steal who you are forever. He didn't just steal who I was, Rachel said, tears now flowing freely. He stole who I could have been. I used to love fashion, makeup, feeling beautiful. I used to be confident and outgoing. Now I'm just scared all the time. Let me help you get it back, Daniel said. Not because I want to change you or because I think you need fixing, but because everyone deserves to feel safe being themselves. Let me show you that not all attention is dangerous. That being seen doesn't have to mean being hurt.
Ow.
Rachel wiped her eyes. Why do you even care? You barely know me. 'Cause when I look at you, I see someone extraordinary trying to make herself ordinary. I see intelligence, creativity, kindness, and strength. And yes, I see beauty, but that's the least interesting thing about you. I care because you deserve to care about yourself again. The words broke something open in Rachel. For 5 years, she had believed the lie that her appearance was the problem, that beauty was a curse. But Daniel was offering a different narrative, that the problem was never her. It was the man who abused his power and the system that protected him. Small steps forward, the lunch ended with no grand declarations or dramatic changes. Daniel simply paid the bill, walked Rachel back to the office, and told her he was there if she ever needed to talk. But something had shifted. Over the next few weeks, Rachel found herself seeking out Daniel's company rather than avoiding it. They had coffee in the morning, discussed projects throughout the day, sometimes stayed late working side by side in comfortable silence. Daniel never pushed. He never commented on her appearance or made her feel objectified. Instead, he asked about her dreams, her opinions, her ideas. He treated her like a person of value, not because of how she looked, but because of who she was. Slowly, carefully, Rachel began to relax around him. She laughed more freely. She shared stories from her past. She even mentioned one day that she used to love painting before she convinced herself she didn't deserve creative joy. "Why don't you deserve it?" Daniel asked, genuinely puzzled. "Because I'm hiding. I'm lying about who I am. How can I create authentic art when I'm living inauthentically?" Daniel considered this. What if you started small? Paint something just for yourself. Not to show anyone, not to prove anything, just to remember what it feels like. That weekend, Rachel bought a small canvas and a set of watercolors. She sat at her kitchen table and let her brush move without overthinking. The painting that emerged was abstract, swirls of amber and gold, dark shadows giving way to light. When she showed it to Daniel on Monday, he studied it for a long time. "This is you, isn't it?" he said finally. "This is how you see yourself. Shadows and light fighting for space." Rachel nodded, surprised that he understood. "I think the light is winning," Daniel said softly. "The transformation begins. It started with small changes." One morning, Rachel wore her hair down instead of in a severe bun. She didn't make a big announcement or draw attention to it. But when Daniel noticed, he smiled and said, "Your hair looks nice. Not you look beautiful, or you should wear it down more often." Just a simple observation that acknowledged the change without demanding more. Encouraged. Rachel made other subtle shifts. She replaced her oversized cardigan with a sweater that actually fit. She switched to contact lenses one day, letting people see her amber eyes clearly. She wore a touch of lip color, just enough to make her feel a bit more like her old self. The office noticed. Jennifer gushed about Rachel's glow. Other coworkers complimented her new look. But Rachel found that the attention didn't frighten her as much as she expected. Maybe because she was making these changes for herself, not for anyone else's approval. Daniel noticed too, of course, but his reaction was different from everyone else's. He didn't focus on her appearance. Instead, he said, "You seem happier lately. More at peace." "I think I am," Rachel admitted. "For the first time in 5 years, I'm starting to feel like myself again." "I'm glad," Daniel said. "The world needs more of the real Rachel Bennett." One evening, after most of the office had cleared out, Rachel and Daniel were working on the final presentation for Meridian. They had been collaborating closely for weeks, and the project was nearly complete. "I couldn't have done this without you," Rachel said, reviewing the design mock-ups on her screen. "You pushed me to be bolder, to trust my instincts." "You did all the work," Daniel replied. "I just reminded you of what you were capable of." Rachel turned to face him. They were sitting close, and in the dim light of the empty office, she could see the warmth in his eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to really look at him. To notice the strong line of his jaw, the way his hair fell slightly over his forehead, the kindness that seemed to radiate from him.
"What, Daniel?"
she said quietly. "I need to tell you something." "Anything." "Think I'm falling for you, and that terrifies me." Daniel didn't look surprised. He simply nodded, as if he had been waiting for her to arrive at this realization. "I know. And for what it's worth, I've been falling for you since the day I watched you work on that hotel design, completely absorbed and unaware that anyone was watching. You were so focused, so passionate. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen." "But I looked terrible that day," Rachel protested. "I was wearing that awful gray cardigan, and my hair was a mess." "I wasn't looking at your clothes or your hair," Daniel said. "I was looking at you. The real you. the one who comes alive when she's creating something meaningful. That's who I fell for. Rachel felt tears welling up again, but this time they weren't tears of pain or fear. They were tears of relief, of release, of finally being truly seen and accepted. "I'm still scared," she whispered. "I know. And I'm not asking you to stop being scared. I'm just asking you to trust me enough to be scared together." Daniel reached out slowly, giving Rachel every opportunity to pull away. When she didn't, he gently cupped her face in his hands. His touch was soft, respectful, asking permission with every movement. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. Rachel's heart hammered in her chest. Every instinct from the past 5 years screamed at her to run, to protect herself, to retreat into safety. But a stronger voice, the voice of the woman she used to be and the woman she was becoming, said yes, yes, she breathed. The kiss was gentle, tender. Nothing like the aggressive advance she had experienced 5 years ago. Daniel kissed her like she was precious, like she mattered beyond her appearance, like she was someone worth cherishing. When they pulled apart, Rachel was crying openly. Daniel wiped her tears with his thumbs, his expression full of concern. "Are you okay? Did I push too hard?" "I'm sorry if I did." Rachel shook her head, laughing through her tears. "No, you didn't push at all. I'm crying because I'm happy. Because for the first time in 5 years, I feel like I can be myself and still be safe. Because you see me, really see me, and you don't want to hurt me." "Never," Daniel promised. "I will never hurt you. And if anyone ever tries to hurt you again, they'll have to go through me first." Facing the past, their relationship developed slowly and carefully over the following months. Daniel never rushed Rachel into anything she wasn't ready for. They had dates at quiet restaurants, walks through the park, movie nights at her apartment where they talked more than they watched the screen. Rachel continued her transformation, but now it felt like liberation rather than exposure. She bought clothes that she actually liked, experimented with makeup, got a haircut that framed her face beautifully. She wasn't trying to attract attention anymore. She was simply reclaiming the parts of herself she had buried. The office buzzed with gossip about Rachel and Daniel's relationship. But Daniel made it clear that Rachel's promotion to creative director had nothing to do with their personal connection. It was based solely on the success of the Meridian campaign and her exceptional talent. One day, Rachel received a message that made her blood run cold. Richard Holloway, her former boss, had reached out via LinkedIn, asking if she would be interested in working on a freelance project. Rachel stared at the message, her hands shaking. All the old fear came rushing back. She wanted to block him immediately, to pretend she had never seen it. But something stopped her. She showed the message to Daniel that evening. His face darkened with anger, but his voice remained calm. "What do you want to do?" "I want to tell him exactly what I think of him," Rachel said. "I want to tell him that he doesn't get to contact me, that what he did was wrong, that I'm not the scared girl he bullied out of her job. But I'm also terrified that if I respond, he'll have power over me again." Daniel thought for a moment. What if you respond, but on your terms? Not to engage with him or give him what he wants, but to close that chapter for yourself. With Daniel's support, Rachel crafted a response. It was direct, firm, and powerful. "Mr. Holloway, I will not be working with you in any capacity, now or ever. What you did to me 5 years ago was sexual harassment and abuse of power. I reported it, and the system failed me. But I want you to know that I didn't fail myself. I survived. I rebuilt my life and my career. I'm now creative director at Summit Creative Agency. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who treats me with respect. You tried to break me, but you only made me stronger. Don't ever contact me again." Rachel hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she blocked him on every platform. "How do you feel?" Daniel asked. "Free," Rachel said, and she meant it. "For the first time, I feel completely free." The woman who stopped hiding 6 months after that first lunch, Summit Creative Agency, hosted its annual gala. It was a black tie event, and Rachel had spent weeks agonizing over what to wear. Finally, with Daniel's encouragement, she chose a stunning emerald dress that complemented her eyes. She wore her hair in soft waves, applied elegant makeup, and looked in the mirror to see the woman she used to be, stronger and more confident than ever before. When Daniel picked her up, he stopped in his tracks. "Rachel, you look absolutely breathtaking," she smiled. Genuinely comfortable with the compliment? "Thank you. I feel beautiful. And I finally understand that feeling beautiful doesn't make me a target. Being beautiful isn't the problem. Men who can't respect boundaries are the problem." At the gala, Rachel didn't hide in the corner or avoid conversation. She networked confidently, discussed her projects with passion, and laughed freely. She was no longer the invisible woman in the oversized cardigan. She was Rachel Bennett, creative director, talented artist, survivor, woman in love. As she and Daniel danced later that evening, he pulled her close and whispered, "I'm so proud of you. Look how far you've come." Rachel rested her head on his shoulder. "I couldn't have done it without you. You showed me that being seen doesn't have to be scary, that the right person will see all of you, the beauty and the scars and the strength, and love every part." It's always Daniel promised. "I will always see you, all of you, and I will always love what I see." As they swayed to the music, Rachel realized that her journey wasn't about becoming beautiful again. It was about remembering that she had always been beautiful. Inside and out, even when she was hiding, she had spent 5 years trying to disappear, believing that invisibility was safety. But true safety came from being fully herself with someone who saw her completely and chose to stay. Rachel Bennett had stopped hiding, and in doing so, she had found everything she never knew she needed: love, acceptance, and the courage to be beautifully, authentically herself. The woman who once hid behind a plain look had discovered that real beauty was never something to hide. It was something to celebrate, protect, share with someone worthy of seeing it. And Daniel Cross had proven himself worthy every single day.